The Migrant Caravan continues to cast a pall over American politics, but at least for now, they're not on U.S. soil. They're in Mexico, right on the border in Tijuana. While the convoy agitates to be let into this country, no questions asked, the city of Tijuana is stuck with feeding and housing the migrants, and many Tijuana residents are fed up with that.
I'm not really in favor of them coming the way they did. You know, to me, it feels like they invaded.
In my more than 20 years working here, I've never seen a situation of this kind. It's as if we're in a war zone.
Are you worried more are coming?
Very much. We are not prepared for this.
But there are ways in which I can enter your home asking for support and help. This was not the correct way.
We are here because our government has not taken control of these, what we call invasions.
Should this caravan have been stopped at the Guatemala border?
Of course. I agree with that 100%. It should have.
Of course. Well, a new poll by a Mexican newspaper finds that 7 in 10 Mexican citizens hold a negative view of migrant families entering their country. 52% of Mexicans say their country should block any migrants from entering the country without documentation. So the question is, we're getting this right from CNN, are the citizens of Mexico anti-Hispanic racist? They've got to be with those attitudes. Ethan Bearman is a California radio host, and he joins us tonight. Ethan, what I find amazing about this is that the international racist conspiracy is so vast that it includes the majority of Mexican citizens. Like, I never even imagined that in my wildest dreams. Are you surprised to hear it?
I'm actually not surprised, Tucker, because we as human beings have a history of not liking the other. This dates way back. This is a deep part of our brains. So anytime that we see other people coming into our country, we have a negative response to it. That is something that we have to consciously overcome to connect as fellow human beings, because don't forget, these migrants are human beings.
Yes, but they're also, and by the way, there's some truth in what you just said, and I think it's a fair kind of non-judgmental observation of human nature, and I agree with it, I think. What I don't agree with is the reduction by the morons in control of our culture and our public conversation of everything to a simple black versus white versus Hispanic racial divide. And what I guess these pictures and interviews show us is that it's much more complicated. They're not racists for not wanting their country changed by migration overnight, are they?
No, that doesn't make them racist. But again, I mean, so Tucker, we don't live on the savannah. We're not cavemen anymore. So we shouldn't give in to those deep base feelings that are in what some people call the lizard brain part of our brains that are there that say anybody different. We had to live that way tens of thousands of years ago to protect ourselves. We're more advanced in that now. We actually have the technology to identify people, to process and to help people. Because remember, these are asylum seekers who are fleeing violence and food insecurity.
No, they're not. Okay, first of all, they're not fleeing a war. If they qualify for asylum, that means that every person in the nation of Honduras, by definition, qualifies for asylum, which is, of course, insane. But that's a separate debate. I'm interested, though, that you're giving the residents of Tijuana every benefit of every doubt. And you're saying their atavistic instincts are welling up like all peoples would, and I get it. That's basically what you're saying. And I appreciate that you're saying that. I've never heard any liberal say that about American citizens who say, wait a second, my country's totally different. Racist, shut up, bad person, Klansman. Why don't we give our own people the benefit of the doubt in the way that you're giving the residents of Tijuana?
Well, interestingly enough, Tucker, you and I have had similar conversations about people here in the United States before. And again, what I appeal, though, is for us to not just give in to those base instincts. Even here in the United States, we need to remember that these are human beings who deserve our care and our treatment as fellow human beings, so we don't just demonize them and say, oh my gosh, they're invading, because they're not necessarily invading, they're fleeing. And yes, by the way, they are fleeing what is essentially a war when MS-13 has taken over countries like El Salvador and dominated huge swaths of that country. That is like a war zone.
Okay. But they also have a point of view, and you're acknowledging for the first time in the immigration debate that the other side needs representation as well. Their lives are being changed, are being affected. It's costly. it's chaotic. Like, they have a perspective that we can't ignore by dismissing them as bigots. You're acknowledging that. And I'm saying, why can't we afford that same presumption of decency to American citizens? It's not just that they're irrational. When 1 million new people come in every year, when you've got 22 million undocumented in your country, that has an effect on you. It's okay to be upset about it, isn't it?
Well, look, we can acknowledge that assimilation can be difficult for the first generation, but remember, it's the second and third generations that assimilate, and we no longer have those feelings once we get over that initial shock of, hey, maybe they're speaking a different language, maybe they're eating different food, which we end up loving in this country. These are things that we can't give into that base instinct. And yes, we are a much bigger country that's much more economically rich. We have more resources available to help people, and we have to remember to help.
True. I think actually we're basically a broke country that thinks it's still rich, sort of like an aristocratic family in decline. We don't know how rotten the foundations are. But whatever, separate conversation. But will you at least concede that decent, this is all I want from this conversation, that decent people can look at mass migration and say, you know what, I'm not into it. I don't like it. And that doesn't make them bad people.
It doesn't make them bad. And again, I just want to say that we can't live our lives, we still live in caves and we're tribes on the savannah. And so I say we have to rise above that. It doesn't make you bad that you have that base instinct. But if you just give into it and stop there, you've stunted your own growth. And I don't think that's healthy.
To be continued, Ethan Bearman. Great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.